Breakaway.
Okay, close this, yeah? Right. We are live. All right, ready? Okay, mates, got a shark fishing seminar here at Breakaway. We've got Team Breakaway Shark Fishing. They're the guys that do all the good numbers. Tagging, releasing, bring them in quick, getting them out. They're going to talk about everything they use and how to do it. I'd like to introduce Dion Hunter. He's got a strange accent, weirdo, but nice guy. He's from South Africa, and he knows the whole game. How long have you been fishing sharks?
Close on 30 years.
30 years. So here we go. Go to it. Thank you, Dion.
Hey guys, nice of you guys to join us. This is our team. This is Carol, Ashley, Kent, Chris, Christian. We will all call him Chris, and then Hub over there.
And there's Frog in the background, who's the main chef.
And then Frog in the back, who's our chef. I mean, we are very fortunate to have a chef when we go down the beach. So, and we don't have to worry about cooking food. He's always there to do it.
Go ahead and wave, Frog. Oh, Ken waves.
All right, so this is going to be pretty much just the basics on how to get started, what you need to release fish really quickly, and unfortunately, shark fishing gets a bad rep when people kill sharks and they get stuck on the beach and they leave them there and all that. So I want to just go through a couple of the things that we do, how we do it. I mean, Christian's landed some monster hammers and managed to release them, and that's really awesome. I mean, it's just shows, and I'll get him to just talk about how he did it and how quickly I had to work to get it done. And it's all about getting it done really fast. All right, so obviously I'm an advocate of the Grillox. This thing helps. I mean, I fish with it. Carol, they fish with it. I know Christian has something different. I mean, I think he fishes with the rod and the rod holder, which he can.
Standard harness.
And then he also gets in the harness too. So, but this saves a lot of stress. And then obviously fishing HDXs, those acid wraps, you can't fish with them in the rod holders because they're not designed for that. They're designed more for fishing in a harness.
You want to show them this, Dion, an acid wrap HDX to show them how you rig that harness and stuff?
I'm probably on that one.
Yeah.
That one's on sale now.
So what it's got is a reel seat 10 inches from the butt. And then this is what's called acid wrap. And I believe the guy who invented it was on acid at the time.
Yeah, it makes no sense, but it works well.
So what you've got is the tip top is reversed to the main gatherer. So what happens is the rod naturally bends in the position you want it to be. You can almost take your hands off it.
So it's like a spiral wrapping around the rod, right?
Yeah, and it goes opposite the real handle. So wherever you've got the handle, you put the weave, the guides around the blank opposite the handle. Where's Dion?
Level 10, cool.
Freaking out the big guy. Here he
Oh
comes.
boy.
So that's what it does. It's really simple. Clip in there,
Great
clip in
pomelo,
there,
Rick.
and then that's it. You don't. I fish with my hand on the reel. You don't have to hold the rod or nothing. So and then you can guide your line, and it's just super strong on everything. So that's what it looks like.
Awesome.
And yeah. And when you want to get out of it, it's really fast too. There we go.
Come get one of those at Breakaway.
All right. So I'm gonna let Chris just talk about his big hammers and how he released them while I just organize this stuff.
Okay. So this year we did really good. We got really lucky and we were able to land 2 hammers over 14 feet, and both were successful releases. The biggest thing on the big hammers is you want to limit fight time. You want to fight that fish as fast as you can and as hard as you can. Sometimes, you can't do it in 45 minutes on these really big fish. It can take upwards of an hour. But the number one rule is to fight it as hard as you can and as fast as you can. The other thing is, in my opinion, the most important part is the handling procedures of these fish. So as soon as you land the fish, you want to keep that fish in the water at all times, and at least 2 feet of water. A lot of cases, I'll actually keep them in the first gut. If that first sandbar is too shallow, it's just going to cause too much stress getting that animal over the sandbar and then back out again. So fight time needs to be quick, and then the release time needs to be really quick too. Have your things together. I like to keep everything in a backpack, have all my tools in one bag. Dion's gonna get into that and what all the tools entail, but make sure all your things are together. Also make sure you have multiple people with you if you can. There's a lot of times where it's just Hub and I. Hub's been doing this with me since he could barely walk, so he knows what's going on. He always has my tools ready. He knows what I need. That way there's just you're not sitting there and wasting time. I mean, the whole thing should be taken, I would say, less than 3 minutes. You know, by the time you get that fish into the first gut, get the hook out, tape measure, get your measurements, tag in if you're going to put a tag in, and just don't be messing around. Another thing is, I like to face the sharks into crashing waves and open their mouth while somebody else is either doing the tag in or getting my tools ready, whatever that might be. That way those crashing waves are going into their mouth and you're getting fresh oxygenated water over their gills. That seems to really keep them really frisky and aids a lot in the release. The other thing is you don't want to drag them on the beach because you have to remember some of these animals weigh in excess of 1,000 pounds. They're made to live in the water, not on land. So you're going to crush their internal organs and just cause them undue damage that doesn't really need to be done. So the other thing is circle hooks. Make sure you grind your barbs off. You want to get that hook out as fast as possible. I really like removable traces. Let's say you mess up, you forgot your bolt cutters or whatever the case may be. You have a long liner clip or a
Shackle.
And that way you could just take that trace off and let that fish go with the hook and the trace in its mouth, which is better than sitting there for 10 minutes digging around in its mouth, jacking up its jaw and just causing it more stress. So, but definitely, bolt cutters, if that hook's not coming out fast, you can cut that hook in half. Those are carbon steel hooks. They're going to rust out pretty fast, and you're not going to cause the fish a lot of harm.
All right.
So, that would be the basics, I think, on just making sure that these fish live quick, have all your things together, keep them in the water, and the pictures, a lot of times we don't get that great of pictures because I'm not too worried about it. I have somebody taking pictures as I'm doing the work. You got a couple seconds you can pose like Rory shot with a big hammer, get his head back in the water and get it, sent out. Oh, another thing on the big hammers, really big, any big shark, is I like to release them far out. I'll take my time and actually swim them past the first gut, over the second bar, and release them in, 10 foot of water. Give them a good slap on the tail, make sure they're really getting it going. That way they don't have to work to get over those bars. And just seems to be a much better way of getting a successful release.
Thank you. There is a question. Hub, how big's the biggest shark you've caught?
9-foot hammer.
What?
9-foot hammer. Okay, they also want to know how old are you and where you go to school?
I'm 10 and I go to
Pins.
Valor.
Valor?
He just started a new school this year, so.
All right. Valor, got a superstar shark catchman on the way to you. Christian, got another question. True or false, you caught a shark with the kayak?
I did, yeah. So that was recently, it was about a month and a half ago. We had a cutoff right at first light. And so I hopped in the kayak to go retrieve my float. And as I was retrieving my float, I had taken the leader and I took the weight off, threw it in the back, and then I clipped the leader to my seat on the kayak, and a 10-6 tiger picked up the bait in the process of that. So it was, it got western quick.
Yep. So he drug you around, and you did reel him in and land him.
Yep, we drug him to shore on the kayak. It was a little bit back and forth. And then I hopped off on the second bar. It was high tide, so it was a little deep. And we did a little hand-to-hand there.
That is amazing.
Got him landed.
Christian, where are you from? And tell us a little bit about your business, your bakery.
So originally I'm from Germany, House, Germany. I am an immigrant. I immigrated here with my parents, and we started the New World Bakery in Kyle, Texas. And our family trade is baking, so we brought that from Germany to the United States, specifically Texas. And we offer fresh daily breads and pastries 6 days a week.
Boom.
In Kyle, Texas.
There you go.
Thank you, Chris.
All right, so we're gonna go into some of the basic stuff that we'll need. So when you're on the beach, always gonna have to have a good pair of side cutters. Not a pair that's gonna kind of gnaw at the thin wire. You want it to cut it off right away. A good pair of bolt cutters, something that'll actually cut a hook off. So if, like Christian was saying, if you get in a situation and the hook doesn't want to come out, just cut the hook off and, just take the loss of $10 or whatever the hook is. Rather let that fish get out there. The leaders, what he's talking about, the detachables. So you'll see it's got a shackle here. So what you can do is you can just, if you don't have pliers or anything like that, you just undo the shackle, throw the whole thing off and let the fish go. You can see there, I have no barbs in these hooks. That also helps you get that hook out so much quicker. And in my opinion, I think when you get a pickup, you've got a big barb, I think it hinders the bait going in. So without a barb, I think that the hook just goes through the fish's jaw a whole lot, or through the skin a whole lot quicker. So I definitely an advocate for fishing totally barbless. And
Pro
obviously,
tips. Show us the hook one more time before we move on so I can show the people. All right. That is a barbless hook. He has grinded that off. Do you grind them off?
this one I actually just took my crimping tool and I just snapped the barb off.
Okay. Got to be strong to do
I
that.
normally grind them off with the Dremel tool.
Looks great. Thank you, sir.
And so that there is, if you can't feel anything there, then that to me is barbless. So
Yes, sir.
that's not going to get hooked anyway. And people say you're going to lose fish because it doesn't have a barb. Not the case. You do not lose the fish. Once that hook is through there, even when they're on the beach and you're trying to get the hook out, you still sometimes have to use the Surfmaster de-hooker, which just pops them out pretty quickly. Another very important part is communication between you and the person out there. So I use radios. So we'll run radios. I put my one radio in a cover because the salt water just eats the hell out of them, especially when you're yakking baits out and you're getting wet all the time. So these radios, I put one in a cover. One goes with me, one stays up on my rack, and we can communicate back and forth on what's happening. Having a good tape measure, especially with 14 footers. Our normal tape measures are all these little standard 120-inch rulers. They don't, when you got a bigger fish, it's nice to have a solid ruler. And these Surfmasters makes a real good one. They 15 foot. That's a dream fish for me. We'll get to those 15 footers. I think you might have hooked one last year, didn't you? Mm-hmm. And you just didn't have a measuring tape.
Yeah, I just didn't have the measuring tape. Yep.
So,
but it was, I think it was 15, close to it.
So another thing guys don't do is before they go fishing is to preset their drags on their reels. Hey, Cons.
How are you, sir?
Is to preset all their drags on their reels. And so I'll put a scale on the reel and I'll have so that all my reels are exactly the same. So when you're fighting a fish, you'll just put it on there. I think on my TRXs, I will have it at 35 pounds of drag at strike. So then when you go to full drag after that, then it goes up to almost 70 pounds of drag, which I don't believe anybody can really hold 70 pounds of drag if you're in a harness. That's going to drag you off your rack. So 35 pounds of drag is a lot. And you'll be surprised. We can hook up grill locks and all that. We can put you guys on the grass there, which is going to pull you on your ass. And we can pull 35 pounds of drag in it, and it's hard to hold. So that's another thing. Preset all the reels so that you know where you're at. A good weight. I like these copper wires. They don't drag in the sand, so when you try and get them loose, they sit there really well. And when you're trying to reel them in, you're not dragging your butt and breaking everything to try and get them loose.
Okay, I had a question a minute ago. When you use like a drone or the boat, how do you make sure that when you drop that bait that's gonna set, or it just does automatically? How does that?
It just does automatically.
Well, the weight will just drop
Explain.
down.
How does it work though?
So when you drop it, of course the weight weighs more than everything else, and you're gonna try and drop up current. You want to go up current, and then when these weights drop, it doesn't matter how they drop. If they drop this way, when you pull to set that drag, it's gonna pull this weight in like this.
Okay.
and you dig into the sand.
It digs in the sand itself as you set the rod.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
So another thing that I will use all the time, especially when you're kayaking, you can't use this with a drone. So there's 2 reasons I use this. Well, 3 reasons. Firstly, you can go out there, you can run a bait in the morning, and if you feel like you want to change your bait, you can just take a fresh bait, yak out to your float, undo everything, put a new bait on, drop it back down again. Secondly, if you get a cutoff, you can go out there and go and get it, and you're not leaving all that stuff in the ocean. And then thirdly, when you're fighting a fish, you know exactly where that fish is because you can watch your float just going all over the place. And this also puts drag on a fish as well. So it kind of just helps you slow the fish down to a degree. I mean, I've watched these floats just go straight under the water and then they're gone. And you're like, oh, well, we know it's a big boy.
I've seen a hammer tear them off. They run so hard it'll tear it off that leader.
Yeah.
So, and then another thing that is great about the floats too is I love them for orientation.
Yes.
So when I'm pulling a bait, I know like, hey, I dropped this 80 right here because I can see the float, and that way I can go off to either side or distance-wise. It's really nice just having one in the water already just to give you a bearing on where everything's at.
And then also, once you start getting, I like to zone in on the fish, and there's going to be like that magic marker at that time of the day or that weekend or whatever, and it may be 1,000 yards, it may be 400 yards, and you dropping baits at like 800, 600, 400, and 300, and now you start getting all the bites on 600. You know you can just stagger. Oh, that's a 600 mark, and you can just stagger them all along there, and you become very successful doing that. So floats are very important, and then you're not leaving all the trash in the ocean once you cut off. If you do cut off, you can go and get all your stuff. And it becomes. I mean, that float I got last weekend, and that came with about 1,500 yards of line attached to it. So I managed to get it out of the ocean, and we cleaned up. I mean, I got a new leader and weight and all that kind of stuff, so I was pretty happy. So yeah.
It saves you a lot of money too. I mean, these leaders aren't cheap, these hooks aren't cheap, the weights aren't cheap. I mean, a lot of times in one leader setup, you can easily have $80.
Oh yeah.
So the float saves a bunch of money.
It does, absolutely. So we've gone over all that. I mean, we do tag and release everything. So we'll take DNA samples, and we'll do tagging and all that. But that's part of the shark rodeo. And as a team, we get involved and tag, and we'll put. This is what it looks like. The little tag. We'll put a tag in, and fill in all the information, send it in. That goes down to the Coastal Conservation Association and the Heart Foundation. So it's all about giving back to what we do. And I think Texas has one of the biggest tagging programs than anywhere else in the world. I was involved in the tagging program in South Africa, and it's nowhere near as big as it is over here. And I mean, it is huge. I think I looked at it the other day. I think they have tagged since 2014. I believe that is 10,000 sharks are being tagged already. Wow. That's a lot. That's a heck of a lot. I think we sitting as Team Breakaway, we've tagged 160 sharks this year.
Something like that.
I believe it's about 160 sharks.
163 maybe?
It could be a little more than that. I think it's around about there.
All right.
While you're there, Carlos, you make these, don't you?
Yes.
Come and talk to me about that. How you use it.
One of the most important tools you can have.
Surf Masters,
Yes,
Texas.
sir.
Need to have.
Carlos,
Come
come
in
on.
at the center.
Come on in.
Tell us who you are, sir.
My name is Carlos Gonzalez, and I own Texas Surf Masters.
Boom.
I'll pretend.
So these were designed for your hands, for safety.
So you're not losing fingers.
I've seen a lot of guys get bit or come close to getting bit. So I've been using one of these, the smaller version, for years, and we decided to make a bigger one just to be able to keep people safe. So basically, it's a little K, and it's got a little back hook and a front hook. So if the hook is in there, you could go in and punch it out, and it'll do just that. And what it does is it protects that tip from getting snagged on the way out. So as you see, if you put it together, it lines up, and it protects that that barb from coming back and grabbing or hooking anything. The other thing it does is you can twist it out.
Right.
So you come in here and you just twist it, and it's sturdy enough. It's made out of a stainless 3/8 stainless bar, and I put it on a vise and literally cranked on it, and it wouldn't tweak. The other thing is if it's in like this, you come in here and then just pop it out. Just use it like a slide, and it'll pop right out. Always in the direction opposite of the bar.
The biggest way is I like to do that and just hit hit it from the back, and it's got a nice covering here. Just hit it, and it pops that hook out. And like you said, when you pull it out, it's protected. It doesn't get stuck again.
Right.
So
Very, very handy tool.
it is. Yeah, it's a necessity.
Yeah.
You got to have that if you're shark fishing.
Yeah.
And unless you're just gonna cut hooks all the time. And if
It gets expensive.
yeah, the hooks like those become
Yeah.
They can become really expensive. So that's pretty much the basics on what we're looking. I mean, when I'm running big baits, I'm gonna run a 24 circle. When we're running smaller baits, I'll run like a 20-aught down to like a 16-aught, just depending on what size of the bait. I mean, your hook should match your bait.
When someone's starting fishing, shark fishing, like you can get a drone now and you can run a bait 1,000 yards. What would you say would be a safe distance for someone to be able to work fishing quick and drop and release when they're beginning the game?
Well, Chris and I were talking about this I think it was yesterday, that I dropped a bait at 300 yards and got a 13-9 hammer.
Okay.
So there's no...
And the chances are better of getting it in quick and getting it out.
I mean, you got to put
What bait?
So
What do you use?
my most...
Pompano.
If I'm fishing near Nick, I'm going to steal all his pompano. And but he won't fish anywhere near me. And so I like cownos. Cownos to me is the go-to bait all the time. I mean, they'll stay out there a whole lot longer.
They're tough.
They're tough. I mean, they just, you can leave a bait out there for 12 hours if you wanted to. And as long as there's no crabs and pufferfish, then you should be okay.
Almost nothing else eats them except crabs and pufferfish.
Yeah, pufferfish pufferfish and crabs. I mean, if there's pufferfish around, you're gonna come back with a skeleton. That's what you're gonna have left, and it'll just be sitting there with like nothing.
But most other fish will not eat the cow nuts.
We like fresh whiting. A live whiting, you're already on the beach. You should have a bait rod. Pitch you a little piece of shrimp out there. Catch you a whiting about that big. And that's what Ash and I predominantly use.
Yeah. We're not after the big sharks
We,
like our other teammates
yeah,
are.
we let these guys take care of the big ones.
I must say, whiting, I've heard of multiple 11-foot tigers that have come on a whiting,
Yeah.
and not far out.
I have a 12-2 tiger on a ladyfish on a 300-yard drop.
Right.
Wow.
You never know what's going to
Two
happen.
prices, 30, 75 for the big one.
So you just never. Whiting is.
Boom.
I mean,
There's your question.
you look at the guys on the boats catching bluefin tuna and all that. They're using whiting and they're using bluefish, and so. But the only thing with the whiting is you'll have to change it more often. You've got to go, and that's where that is. You're not reeling it in all the time. You just hook another whiting, run out there, undo your shackle, put a new one on, and just throw it back down
If you
again.
use whiting, you got to stay active.
Yeah, it's an active
Yeah.
fishing. It's a soft bait. If you want to be like, I mean, if you're bombing about 800 to 1,000 yards, you want to put a bait that's going to stay out there for a while.
Yeah, not a whiting.
You don't want to put a whiting out there.
How long do you fish a whiting? If you're
Depends
target,
completely on conditions, like they
Yes.
were saying, what kind of fish are in the area. Crabs are bad. One thing that'll help save fish space too is actually suspending the bait off the bottom if you use like a float rig. I've had a lot of success with that, especially on black tips. It keeps the bait fresh much longer. But it completely depends on what's in the area. Like I said, if you have pufferfish in there, I mean, start
Gone.
to-
You
All
got
right.
to change it every hour.
Gotcha.
See
Best
your rod
case.
tipping a lot. It's crabs.
6 hours.
okay.
But to go real quick back to the original question on droning the bait, if you're a first timer, like how far? I would say if you're first timer, I would keep your baits within 400 yards. There's monster fish in that distance. Everybody thinks you got to bomb baits at 1,200, 1,300 yards.
No.
I have a 15-foot hammer on a 400-yard drop. So
Well-
they're not that far out. Last year, or March, I lost a giant mako on a bait that wasn't that far either. So you never know what's going to be in, and then you also want to make sure you have enough line on your reel to fight one of these fish, right? Because you never know what's going to pick it up. I would say minimum, absolute minimum, have 300 yards on your line, on your reel once the bait is dropped, just to fight that fish. But like a big hammer, that big hammer took 700 yards at full drag on pickup.
For an
So,
example, I was fishing with Dion, and he had that was an 11.5-foot hammer, and I was over there helping him release it, and I had a line out 300 yards on a 8,000 spinning reel. I came back to this much of my rod left. Something hit it, spooled it, broke the rod off.
Wow.
So yeah, you got to make sure that you have.
I think it's all about reading the conditions. Sometimes your third and fourth bars, you got to know where they are. And that, I mean, if you're looking out there, you'll see every now and again a little wave will pick up on that third or fourth bar. And fishing the inside of the third bar and the outside of the third bar, I've had most of my success doing that, because a lot of those predatory fish are up and down those bars, and you'll be surprised how deep it is behind those bars. I've had 90% of my success is running just this side of the third bar, other side of the third bar. And that's why it's good to have floats, because then you can stagger them. And lately, for some reason, the fish are being deep. And I think it's because of the hot water. The water's sitting at 92 degrees. Last week we were down there, it was 92 degrees. And so we've had to try and run real far to try and find cooler water. And I think once these fronts start rolling in and the water cools down, I think the fish will move back in again.
That's a good point too, the weather.
Oh yeah.
So what happens seasonal, what, shark fishing?
Well, I mean, so your winter, you're going to be fishing, bull sharks are always around here. Bull sharks, black tips, and then your sandbars are your winter fish. Makos, if you're lucky. I mean, they're not a very common species around here. Your spring fish are your hammerheads, depending on the jacks. If the jacks start moving in, then the tiger sharks will follow them in. So,
a big thing too on bait selection is the way I kind of go is match the hatch. What like, you know what I'm saying? If the jacks are in, fish jacks. You know, if you're seeing a bunch of southern stingray, fish southern stingray. There's a lot of people that say that bait doesn't work.
they work.
Me, it does.
Especially when they're fresh. They work when they're fresh.
Yeah, exactly. I would. You catch one on the beach, send them back out.
Send it, yeah.
You guys were talking about the cold water and whatnot. I'd heard something online, like on the release of a big shark, sometimes they don't perk up till they get in that second gut because the water's colder in the second gut. So it was pretty critical to kind of try to get them out there.
Warm water doesn't carry as much oxygen as cool water.
Okay.
So that would be probably primarily the reason too on later in the summer why you have more deaths on these big sharks, just because the water doesn't have as much oxygen. That's why it's really important too to keep their mouths open and keep those crashing waves on them. I don't know if you guys have watched that show on Discovery Channel where they catch a great whites and then they put them on that elevator
Yeah.
and they shove that tube in their mouth, pumping water over their gills. You're doing the same thing, you're just doing it with the surf. The surf will do it for you.
Yeah.
So.
Well, we don't have the luxury of having the pump to
Yeah,
shut
that would be
down.
nice.
I think we need one.
Frog!
Breakaway pump coming soon.
We got a pumper and
I'll
a...
get Surfmasters.
Solar pump.
All right. So I'm going to just hand over to Carol for a second. She's going to talk about the droning stuff. I don't drone. I'm old school. I'm a kayaker. And
I'm just old.
and so she's just going to talk about the drone and just how she uses the stuff and all that kind of stuff.
Okay, first thing, I drone, and Ashley and Kent also have a drone. The drone that I currently use is called a Kudacopter. This is the Boss model. They have a Trident model, and they use the Swell Pro
FD2.
So the main advantage to the drone is you're not getting in a kayak and going out there, and especially if the waves are rough. Like last year at Sharkathon, it was almost impossible to get a plate.
We got baits out.
We did, but I like to watch Dion swim. Anyway, so that's the advantage to it. And then, for me, I've shark fished for many years. When I was much younger, I shark fished, and they didn't even have kayaks. You used to surfboard. So, I've done my
Is it
time
made
doing
of bamboo?
that. Huh?
Bamboo raft.
Yeah, what I'm gonna do is got some grasses and stitch them together. So, for me, this is just easier and less stress on my body. There is a slight learning curve. I had an advantage because I've flown RC before. That's my husband's hobby, so I understood that. But if you follow the directions, and they have a lot of videos, self-help videos to help you with these, they're really super simple to fly. And I'm always telling people, come out, stop and fish with me. I'll put you on the drone. You can fly it. The main thing is if you let go, it's just gonna stop. So if you get in trouble, just stop flying. Just let go of the sticks, let it settle itself, figure out what's going on, and then go back to your mission. This one will carry up to 8.8 pounds, so it has a heavy payload. But in that, you've got to consider your weight, your bait, all your leader. You've got some drag pulling it off the reel, and wind conditions. So there's a lot to consider when you're flying a drone. And then just learning learning your drone. You have to fly it. You have to practice with it. So one of the things I suggest when I'm teaching people to fly their drone, once they can get it up and they're stable with it, is just fly in a circle. Just keep flying in a circle like this. And once you get that, and it's kind of second nature how to do the sticks. Of course, they have a return to home, so you can just push that button, it comes back. They have a return to home and land. It'll land, but the problem is if you take off where your lines are, it's going to land in your lines. So you got to be cognizant of that. You also have to be cognizant of where the lines are at when you're taking off. Keon and I learned that lesson.
Can you pick it up and show us how big it is? Because it's extra cool and awesome, and it's got a headlight.
This is well, that's the camera. It does have a little camera here. The Cudicopter this is like a 1080p camera. It's nothing fancy because it's a dedicated fishing drone, not a filming drone. You can get some cheaper drones. I learned on a Phantom 3 Professional, and there's a bait drop that's made specifically for it, but it only carries about 1.5 pounds of weight. So, you're looking at a big upgrade going to this if you're shark fishing. And at that time, that's all I was taking out was whitings and pompanos, and so it worked for me. But it is a big advantage, especially if you have health issues and you can't kayak out there. The waves are too big. The conditions are too dangerous. There are times when you really shouldn't be out there kayaking.
Texas Beach Bum says that's not a drone, that's a plane.
Okay, it's a plane. I have some planes at the house. They wouldn't fit through this garage door. So, but yeah, I mean, I'm willing to answer any questions. If you want to just send me a message on Facebook or get in touch with me. If you see me out on the beach, stop and talk to me, and I'll be happy to help you. But it really is simple if you just put in the time. One of the things that happens most is people don't put in the time. They just want to get it, take it out of the box and fly it.
Sammy's like that.
I just turned my camera to you.
So I have fixed Nick's drone several times.
Nick, we got a question. Are the shirts available online, or do they have to come see Marie?
No, you can get them online.
All right.
And we got new ones coming, and we're doing them like what's that called? Just a few at a time. Test strip.
Like a swap
Limited.
sonar dome.
Yeah,
So
GPS
limited edition shirts coming. These are the Breakaway
They'll be
protein
in
shark
about
shirts. Yeah, and we got like an Abercrombie and Fitch style spinny thingy here. You can go see them on.
But you're not going to get shirts like this.
No, these are specially for the team, and they were designed by
That's a
Action.
drag or something.
Okay.
It's like a float. And it's got
okay.
a sonar on it. It feeds it back through the drone back to the camera. Didn't know if y'all had seen that.
I haven't seen it, and I haven't really done any research on
You
it.
don't need one, right?
Well,
What was that?
It's a sonar. It's a float that the drones take out.
Okay.
Like Swell Pro has one.
yeah, like a fish finder on a boat, but
Yeah.
you would drag it.
Yeah.
The issue that I could see right off is that, okay, if you're dragging a sonar with your drone, you don't have a bait on it.
Right.
So you go out there and you find all these fish. You got to come back Lay up your bait, go out there,
And find it.
and then the fish are probably gone. Even if you marked it, because I'm sure there's a way to mark
We
it.
find shark rigs on the beach often, so it could be expensive as well, I bet.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
by the time you get your bait back out there, are the fish still gonna be there?
And they move quick.
Yeah.
They will move. I mean, that's one thing about that. We always
Actually-
complain as fishermen that fish have tails, then they swim around. They never stay in one place. And you know what? You can go weekend and weekend. You'll go to one spot, and you'll do exceptionally well. Like catch 20 sharks. Go to the same spot next weekend, you won't turn a click.
So the beach is extremely dynamic.
It
just
changes all the time.
Yeah, the 27-mile marker was on fire last weekend. It doesn't mean it'll be tomorrow. I mean, the beach can look completely different.
Structure
There's
change.
been times I've drove down to the jetties and it took 2 hours, and then on the way home it took me 7 hours.
Yep.
So it's completely different every day. One question I have on the drone, I know nothing about drones, but I've always been curious on how the release works. Maybe
Okay.
if you want to.
They're different on almost all of them. I think yours has a servo on it also, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Carol, we had a price on the question on the price of the Kudicopter too.
Okay. So it has the servo,
Okay.
just like you control any flight sources on radio controlled airplanes. It has a servo here, and it has a loop. So I have what I use on when I'm dropping a. So if this is hooked to my main line, what I have is a piece of 30-pound mono. And the reason I use 30-pound mono is because if something happens, and it does happen occasionally on takeoff, the wind will catch it or whatever, and that mono blows in my props, it cuts them. It just cuts them, and I don't have any issues. If you're trying to do this, put this directly on here, and this 400-pound goes in your prop, you're gonna crash. You're gonna mess up your drone. So that's what I use. And then on this one, so my loop from my 30-pound will go over this line. This line goes right on here. And then when I push the button, this will just
So that's
turn.
the
Falls
servo.
off. Yes.
Okay.
that's the servo.
Press the button on the remote. It
And it
clicks the servo and then drops that white tether.
And they're all pretty much the same. They have a lot of them have a pin that goes across, and you can put a loop on it, and then the pin pulls out. But it's all a servo mechanism somewhere in the drone. As far as the price, you can buy the Phantom Pros online, $500 usually with a bait drop and some extra batteries. This one, I paid $2,300 for this one. I get mine out of Australia. It's actually built in South Africa, but I prefer
Build
the
strong.
I prefer the shop in Australia because he is an expert on it. He probably knows more than the manufacturers. He's modified them. He's done all sorts of things to them. So I just prefer dealing with him. It's called Horizon Fishing Drones. He sells others too. There's two places I know in the U.S. that sell them, and
Is that Ultimate Drone?
Urban Drones sells them. I looked at their price yesterday. It was like $3,300. So I don't know where he's getting that from. They may have gone up that much. I've had mine for maybe a year, and so it shouldn't really be that much more expensive. And then there's a new guy. What's his name? Eddie Maddox, I think. Edward Maddox, that is also an ambassador for Kudicopter in the U.S. But I just prefer the one out of Australia.
Ashley,
All right.
Ashley and Ken
Onto the boat.
are going to talk about the boats. We sell these boats. Ashley and Ken were in the lead for a while on tag and release and recording, correct?
Yes, correct. So if you don't want a kayak, you don't want a drone, you don't have the money for a drone, you can get one of these boats from Nick. He sells them here at the shop. About 700 bucks.
Yeah.
So it's a lot cheaper. So, however, this isn't gonna take your bait past 500 meters. So, but for Kent and I, we fish just right over the third bar anyway, so this is perfect for us. So, this boat here has two mechanisms here. Has a pin right here, and then it has a pin in the back.
So you hang your weight on this one?
So we're gonna hang our bait there and our
Right.
weight in the back.
Okay.
All right. So Kit and I just, and also is what's cool about using this boat is you can also send out pompano rigs if you want, which that big 24-inch pompano was caught
That monster
today.
was caught using.
Using this boat. So
I'm
is
gonna
what we
post
do.
that picture.
So we take this to the beach, hook it up to our leader. So you just twist this open, opens up the pins, pinch it in there, pinch it in there.
Oh, it should last.
Just like that.
All right, Kent. There we go.
So you have your weight in the back and you have your bait hanging down. However, you're not going to be able to take anything bigger than 4 pounds. So if you want to take out a whole mullet, piece of cut bait, a piece of cow nose the size of your hand, very optimal. I have not had any problems at all with my boat. Not one issue. And Kent and I, we took it out in some pretty bad surf this year. And I know Frog has too, wherever Frog's at. And man, that thing just went over the bars.
What
And
about trolling with it?
I have never done that.
Can you?
I'm sure you could.
You could
Good.
do,
Yeah.
You better have
Yeah.
Christian to fight it in.
So aside from, this is Nick's redfish rig. So just to show you any size works, this is a shark leader that Kent and I made. Granted, it's a smaller hook. So if you're not fishing for, big monsters like this, Kent and I, we use smaller sharks because we like to catch black tips predominantly. So is what we use is we put these
Just a snap swivel.
just like this.
Oh, I'm with you.
Okay.
And just lock it in
Yep,
there.
and so then you just put it right in here, and you do all this on this little remote control. I'll do the back one.
Perfect.
Just like that. Bam. Takes it out.
Perfect.
Perfect for live whiting,
Yeah.
maybe a pompano head if you're.
What's the lifespan between that
About-
one and the drone? For number of cat,
Okay, so
About 4 drops for this.
considering we're gonna use whiting.
Still about 4.
Yeah.
And that's going past the third bar.
4 times?
Yeah, about 4 times.
A lot of people get a second back.
I was just saying there's an interchangeable battery on
Yeah.
that.
Correct.
Absolutely.
so
Yeah.
the difference between that and the drone is the drone uses a standard RC battery. You can go on Amazon and buy the same batteries. Theirs is a proprietary battery, so you have to buy it from them. I also have a boat, but so on mine, if I'm flying a big bait, it's one bait, one battery. If I'm flying whiting 300 yards, I'll do 2, one battery.
You never want to get the battery low.
There's your battery.
Yeah,
Voltage.
so a couple of years ago, I caught an 11-foot tiger, and everyone was catching tigers, and I'm like, I'm just running it as far as I can run it. So I just headed out. And when the battery got low, it does have a fail-safe. It dropped the bait 830 meters and came back. So that's one thing you'll notice is it talks to you when you're flying, tells you, this is the battery percent or that. But as soon as you release that weight off of it, it immediately goes back up.
And it's Swell Pro?
Swell Pro will normally run, depending on our bait and distance, about 6 times.
Yeah. And they have
Smaller weight.
Right, we're not going out.
and also
We're
they
not
have-
going 800 yards. We're going 600 at the most, with a significantly smaller bait than, say, Christian or Dion.
There is a
Carol
restriction we got to mention on the national seashore with drones.
Right.
as
Yeah, so
well.
if you're on the seashore and you can't use a drone, don't want a kayak, you can use this boat. They're legal. Verified it with the last chief and the chief that is here now on pins. So you can
Well,
use
you
this
can
boat out
use
there.
you can use a boat, you can use a Zodiac, and a kayak. I think that's pretty much the 3.
Yeah.
You're not allowed to use a bait cannon on the seashores. That's illegal. And then obviously drones, and then any hard, like a jet ski or any hard bottom boat, you're not allowed to use it down the national seashores.
And this has GPS on it, so
Y'all got a Kodiak though, I think.
No, No, I gotta scramble at XT.
I thought I saw
You and me both.
maybe it was another
XT
team. I saw
1000.
somebody with a Zodiac.
There was the Townsends. They have a Zodiac, a black one.
Yeah.
They'll just leave it in the water and then run
Yeah,
baits
yeah,
in and
yeah.
out. Yeah. There's a couple of
This is
guys
a few
down
weeks- couple
Pins
weeks
that
ago.
run Zodiacs.
Y'all were mile off of 29.
They were a little on the other side of
Yeah,
us.
so I was
Yeah.
at 35. So
Yeah.
Right. But the Zodiac can get squirrely if the wind picks up. That thing will go.
Yeah.
You need someone on the nose.
Yeah, you need to have two people in it.
I think all of us combined here, we're able to fish as a team in any conditions. I mean, we've got the two expert kayakers. They should be in the Olympics probably. The drones, the boat, we can use all three. And sometimes when we have the room, we'll take all three. We'll take our yak, the drone, and the boat, depending on where we find fish. Sometimes we can't fish pins, conditions just don't allow it. We don't want to go home, so we'll take the drone out, say Whitecap, Mustang Island. But it's got three utilizations to deploy a bait, and you can also always cast down. Nick has some fantastic rods built to cast heavier baits at long distances. And you know, you can catch plenty of sharks in the second gut.
I caught my biggest bull this year. I think was 8 foot on a cast out whiting head.
Yeah.
All right, guys.
Okay, right. Is there any questions? Yes.
Yeah, on your float, does the length of the leader matter? And does the float suspend your bait, or is just
No. So, okay, quickly while we still have battery on it. Oh, geez, we got knotted here. I'll ask you, Carlos, would you walk out to that hook, and I'll just show him where we. We got all sorts of things. There.
Oh wow! Look at that! It lit up. Christmas lights on the boat.
So the length of your trace on the float is going to depend a lot on the depth of water that you're fishing in, and also how long your leader is. He's about to demonstrate real quick how long this leader is. You have to remember that weight's going to slide on the trace on your main part of your
here you
leader.
go. I'll show you. I'll put the weight on.
Yeah.
So the weight just clips on here.
So I generally use 20 feet.
20 feet.
20
So I
for
think
me.
this leader is about 20. I think it's 20 feet, and then it's got about 10 feet of cable. So from there on, I will put my float on here. Should have done this.
We're doing okay. We got 9%.
Oh, good. So I'll drop so when I'm on the kayak, I'll throw the bait, and then I'll grab this line and then drop the weight down so that it doesn't tangle up. I want to position. So I want to throw the bait away from me, let the bait down, hold on to this, and then once I get to this, I just clip it on here. And then obviously your main line's on here, and then I just throw the float. And this float, so it doesn't suspend your bait.
it's just a marker.
Well, you know what? So in pins, I'm gonna make these longer because sometimes you're gonna hit a hole and this thing's gonna be like 20, 25 feet deep. And then it may just suspend this just a little bit off the ground. But in the Matagorda, I'll make my leader shorter. I'll make my float line shorter because the water's a little shallower there and we're not dropping as far.
Another benefit to the float,
Oh,
in my
you can
opinion,
grab it.
is it helps keep your line up off the bottom a little bit
Yeah.
from rubbing on the sandbars.
And then another thing is when you're fighting a fish, your float's gonna come in first. I just tell people, grab the damn float line. Leader the fish in with the float line until you can get to the main deal and then leader in. I don't use a rope. I've been so unsuccessful with ropes. I'd rather just grab the leader and leader the fish in so he's coming in straight and then immediately turn the fish into the waves.
Carlos, could you put that hook in your mouth so you can demonstrate it?
Hand me that hook out.
So I think these are, I believe that, what is 6 meters?
20.
20 feet, yeah. Sorry, I work in meters and I don't do this feet and inches thing. I struggle with that still. So I've only been here for 15 years and I still...
Talking about South Africa, there's something here. And if you go in the YouTube, that's YouTube at Nickaway. It's a slide away that comes from South Africa made by Basil Manning. Dion's got a film of how to send a bait out using this clip that only goes one way. I send it out, but not come back. Yeah, non-return clip. Is that it, guys?
Is there any other questions? I know there was another.
Good on better.
Huh?
We're good on battery.
Oh, we're good on battery?
I think he had one.
Dan,
Dan, did you have a
Dan,
question?
you had a question?
No, I'll stretch it.
Anybody else have a question?
Any questions?
As far as your walkie-talkies, does the brand matter for just?
I use these Cobras. They have pretty good. What do you have? You have Cobras.
Cobra.
And
I had a Midland and they didn't last very long.
Go Cobra.
these, I mean, they work pretty good.
What do you use them for?
So we use them for communication. So if I'm out there and my Carol's on my rack, so when I drop a bait, I'll just radio back saying bait down, bait down. And then if we having to change baits and all that kind of stuff, I can just take the bait, run out there with the radio, say I've dropped the bait, new bait's on, or whatever, you know. So it's just
Communication helps.
it's just communication because now you're trying to wave a paddle and you're 400 yards out, and they can't see you.
Binoculars
Oh,
are binoculars. You need to have a pair of binoculars. You get up on your rack, you can find your floats. It also helps. There's times where I've lost my radio. A lot of the times. Unfortunately.
That's why I have this.
Yeah.
This just goes around the neck, and when I'm yakking out, and it doesn't go anywhere.
That's a great idea. I'm gonna start doing that.
And then I put this on here because
When you go outside.
when you get capsized and a big wave dumps you in the ocean.
Can you talk also about how you hook your bait on your, because I know of an occasion where a kayaker flipped and he got one of them circle hooks in his back.
Okay, so
And
when the conditions are rough, let me just grab that.
so he's going to go and get something to explain how safely to hook it to your kayak, so if you do flip, you're not going to get it stuck in you.
One thing on deploying bait too, on safety wise, I always tell people bait before weight. Throw your bait out first, because as soon as you throw the weight out, everything's ripping off towards the bottom,
Good
right?
one.
So
Good
next
one.
thing you know, you're gonna get a circle in your arm and go down the bottom too.
Oh, that's a big one. Yeah.
So when the surf is rough, I'll have my bait on, and I'll take this, just shove it over the hook.
There you go.
You're not going to get a hook in your back. I've seen a guy that one guy had the hook through
One
his
in his
neck,
neck,
and it was, I think when they did the X-ray, it was like
right next to his main arm.
that carotid artery, and if he had moved the wrong way, he would have bled out.
Do you know the
Then I've
funny
had
thing about that guy? He went home and had a shower before he went to the hospital.
And then I've seen another guy with a hook through this meat part of his back because he got dumped and got washed out backwards.
Roy's playing tackle. He got one right in the middle of his back.
Right.
Be
So
careful,
I just do this. That's what I do. It's protection.
And that's just
Just
a piece
make
of
sure
foam?
you take it off when you throw the bait out. Because, I mean, then it's just pop it off and off it goes. As you can see, this one's got a couple of holes in it already. Like Sharkathon, I wasn't running baits without putting a cork over the hook.
That's a great idea.
And then I always have my baits in the back of the kayak. I never have them in the front. I see some guys throw the baits in the front.
Scary.
Oh, that is dangerous. To me.
Carry a pair of bolt cutters or pliers with you too. I like to put a real nice set of like wire dikes and pliers in my life vest. That day I had that tiger shark pick up that cut off. I didn't have anything on me. I was being lazy that morning, and on a normal day I probably would have cut my losses there instead of done that 2-hour battle. But another thing too on the trace is, when hooking a bait, is make sure you have plenty of hook exposure. Don't bury that entire hook into the bait.
Well, and it takes away the design of the circle hook.
Correct.
I mean, you want as much of that hook available, so when it turns, I mean, if you've got it stuck like that on a bait, like I've seen some guys do, there is no way that hook can do anything. But if you've got it like this, and the fish picks it up, that circle just turns and just goes straight into the bait. So, I'm not saying it doesn't work, but I wouldn't feel safe having it like buried in the bait. There was something else I was going to mention quickly. The float deal. There's been a couple of occasions where you've got a cutoff, you're fighting a fish, and you get a cutoff, and you just chase down your float, reattach the line, and you can keep fighting the fish. You're not losing the fish. And it's happened to me twice this year, I think. Once this year. Twice. It happened in Matagorda and then once down pins, yeah.
Did you swear
One
over
thing
the
that
radio?
Just
I get the question a lot of times on how many traces to run. I always only run a single trace, even with a really big bait. There's no reason to run 2 traces. We used to back in the day with the J hooks.
but that's different. I
That
mean,
was different. Yeah, it was completely different. So Yeah, one trace is all you need, and that way you have less chance of getting hooked too if you're,
Oh, yeah.
It's
get
safer
dumped
on
or something
release.
goes crazy.
You don't have two hooks on the
Correct.
bait on the beach where you try.
Or even landing a fish. I mean, you a big hammer shaking his head or a tiger, and you got a circle hook doing this. That's not fun.
You ready? All done?
Good.
Okay, guys, I want to thank Team Breakaway. They're awesome. And any questions you got, please send them on the YouTube, and I'll get one of these shark fishermen to tell you how it goes and what to use. Anyhow, thank you all very much. We really appreciate it.
Way to go, guys.
Great seminar. Thanks very much. And here's my editors.
Breakaway, Nick away. We're all smarter today. Everybody's gonna catch 12-foot hammerheads. Boom.
Yeah. Good job. Thank you, guys.
Thank y'all so much for joining in.
Thank you. Good job. Thank you. I love it. Store open now? There you go. Hey, Chris. Great job.
Thank you.